Hey folks, it's Cal again, and today I'm changing my lower control arms. So I've done one already, and I made sure I knew how to do it before I made a video because it avoids me looking stupid. But I'm doing the last one. So this is the left hand side, and let me show you what a new LCA looks like. If we just walk around here. Here we go. Here's a new lower control arm. Bring that back around. Give you a better look at that. So that is a Mitsubishi factory control arm. By the way, if you look at the product code, 295 is the left hand side and 296 is the right hand side. Steve Hunt from TME has been really nice, and he marked mine with an L for me so I wouldn't fuck it up. Thanks Steve, you're a champ. So first thing I'm going to do, you have to get the old LCA off, and as you'll note while looking at the new LCA, there's 1, 2, 3 bolt locations, this one being the ball joint and these two just being the ones that mount to the chassis of the car. So the first thing we need to do is get the ball joint off, which is actually not that hard. However, what you may not notice is that the ball joint, I'll see if I can give you a bit of view of that. Not really. I have to get in there, up and underneath. Let's do that. Take it off the chassis. So I'll zoom right out. So this is the ball joint here. Now don't mistake it for the other ball joint, because there's two ball joints on the suspension here. One's for the other lower arm. So the ball joint you don't want to touch is this one. This is the ball joint for that arm. So you want to do the one at the front of the car, not the one at the back. Okay, not that one. Anyway, so here we are getting that ball joint off. The first thing to do is get it loosened, and you will need a 22mm spanner with an open end, and the reason for that is you cannot get underneath in there with a socket because the CV boot's right in the way. So unless you feel like removing the entire wheel and assembly, and pulling out the CV shaft, you don't want to do that. So a decent 22mm spanner will do it. Would it work with a adjustable wrench? Maybe. It's pretty tight. Let's get this off. I'm not getting a good grip on this, am I? I seem to be just a bit too short, no matter what angle I'm choosing. There we go. Now you don't need to take that fully off. Just leave it like that, because the way we're going to be removing this is by whacking that bit there really hard with a nice heavy hammer. Probably heavier than this if you've got one heavier than that. So now what we've got to do is remove the bolt here and further in. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put a spanner on the back of it and hit it with a impact gun. It's probably worth noting that I hit those earlier with some anti-seize stuff. I use Breakaway. There you go, Breakaway. Available at Super Cheap, Autobahn, and whatevers. Let's see if she comes off. Yep. Now the front one only has a single lock washer. The rear one, however, has a lock washer, and on both sides it has like just regular washers as well as a lock washer. So I'm going to see if I can get you to see the next step, but I'll have to fiddle with the camera angles. Hold on. The background's going to look a little blown out here because it's so dark in there. I have to raise up the exposure settings. Let's see if you can see me do this. Got my handy dandy impact wrench on this side. On the outside I've got the 17mm spanner. If it spins, it spins, but I'll hold it with my hand and see how we go. Actually, it won't spin because I'm holding it, so. As you can see, that took a little bit of whooping. A few ugga-duggers, as they say. But the nuts are off. Now, if you can't push out bolts, you can hammer them out. Just with your hammer. See if I can give this a love tap. And if you can't pull it out the whole way, get a screwdriver from the other side and like the back of the screwdriver to push it through, which is what I'm going to do, because I can't pull it out because I'm weak as piss. There she blows. The front one might just come out, or well, that's handy. In my case, it's hitting the it's hitting the front arm, so I can't get that bolt out because it's hitting the other arm, which is super annoying. So let's turn the wheel. That helped a lot. There you go. Out she comes. Now comes the fun part. We have to hit right there as hard as we can with a hammer until it drops. If you take this nut all the way off, it'll just fall all out completely, but you may not be able to because that nut might also hit the boot there. So just leave it on. As long as it falls, you can then take it off. No, it's not glamorous, but this is how you do it. If you can't do that, you can resort to tools like this, which let you sort of effectively push down on the thing, but I've only tried for 10 seconds. Let's just keep going. The other one came out after about 20. Good times. I might need to move the camera and really wail on this. This hammer, like I say, it isn't really heavy enough. Nice big steel hammer with a lot of shock value. Oh, see? Useless. Okay, so I gave up hitting on it, and I was going to use my little pickle fork thing, and since I popped it in there, the whole thing just came loose. So it was ready to fall anyway. I could have just probably pulled it out. There you go. Out she comes. Let's have a bit of an inspection of this lady, shall we? Let's get her on camera there. Let's flip the screen around so I can see the screen. So the only part that really breaks is this bit here on the ball joint. Doesn't feel too bad, but I was getting clunking from the front end, and these have been there for a while. They'd been there since 2014, or probably earlier, and it's now late 2019, and I've put 50,000 Ks on the car, thereabouts. So, time for new ones. You can judge for yourself how well you think that is or isn't. Wonky, but it's certainly, I can't make it click in terms of the pulling it in and out. So it shouldn't be too bad, I guess. Alright, I'm back. So all we've got to do now is put the new system unit in. Traps for young players though. When you get it in, don't tighten this bolt, or the one back there, until you've got the wheel in a normal ride height position. So install it, tighten down your ball joint nut here. Feel free to tighten that down. Leave these ones sort of fingerish tight. Either lower the car, or in my preferred case, I jack up the entire suspension assembly, putting a jack under here, because once this is in, you can jack on it. So I jack up the wheel to about ride height, and then tighten these. And the reason you do that is that there's no bearing in here, right? So in this thing doesn't spin. These are not a bearing, right? They're literally solid in there. But this thing moves up and down with the suspension, right? So if it's moving up and down with the suspension, what's actually turning? Well, the rubber is turning. So the rubber actually stretches in that manner, right? So if you have the suspension fully extended like this, as it is now, right, and you tighten those nuts, then when you raise the vehicle, you're already stretching it just for normal ride height. And so when the suspension compresses further, what will happen is you'll tear the guts out of the bushes really in short order, like days, weeks, who knows, but they won't last long. So instead what you do is you put the wheel at normal ride height and lock it in position. That's its unstressed position. So basically normal ride height is the place where the vehicle is going to be spending the most amount of its time, and that's where you want it to be, in the non-stressed position. And then it stresses when the suspension compresses, and also stresses when the suspension extends over bumps. Traps for young players. Alright, so I'm going to delicately, with the camera in my way, just put this guy in. So you can see I can hang it there. It's hanging because basically it just sort of stresses puts a little bit of tension on the thread, so you can just do that. Well, that's good enough for now. I mean, sure, you can lift it a little bit, spin it down a bit more, but now it's time to get those other bolts in. So what I recommend doing, starting with the one at the back, furthest inboard, and then what you do is you take these rubber bits, go on the outside of it, spray it with some silicone spray, so that there's just removing squeaks. Alright, you get to see my ugly mug now. Find the appropriate bolt. Remember that the one at the back has washers on both sides, and basically the nuts, I think they were facing forward. Yeah, the nuts are on the front that way. You don't want the bolt head that way. Take our bolt, and you may need to jiggle the suspension around a little bit to make it fit. And if it's not far enough in, you can use your hammer and give it a love tap on the outside of the arm to get it into position. Okay, the answer was I had to straighten up the suspension a little bit. That's what helped. Okay, so the answer is, if you're struggling to get that bolt in, just turn the wheel, just turn the wheel left and right, and it'll actually change the distance to that nut. So all I've got to do now is put that bolt on, which I'll do. Okay, the rear one's on. Let's do the front one. Now remember I said just do these finger tight. So I may have to, I'll put you zoomed way out here, and I'll have to shimmy this thing into position a little bit. I have to give a bit of a tab, move the wheel left or right, etc. I think it's best if it goes dead straight. Now this one's stuck a bit. There we go. So I have to tap that to get it to clear. I'm just lining up the hole. There we go. And I'll just tap that through with a hammer. Oh, that was quick. Those threads are a little bit dirty, but not too bad. Alright. Now that we've done that, we can progress to tightening our ball joint down. And I'll see if you can get a shot of that. Actually, it's the front one. Remember how I said there's two ball joints, don't get them mixed up. There you go, perfect example. Right, you can just see that new ball joint there. It's, again, you've got to use the open end. Now, it's the press fit of the ball joint into the hub assembly which will allow you to tighten it. And I say that because if I hold on a sec, you can see here they spin. Alright, so if you're tightening a nut on here, this thing could just keep turning. The reason it won't keep turning is the press fit of that. It's tapered, see? So you can give it a tap, just a gentle one, not too hard, to get it up, and then the press fit will allow you to tighten it. What are the torque values, I hear you ask? And I was going to say, I'll tell you, but let me go and look them up. So I happen to be one of the few who has a service manual, and the ball joint torque here between 59 and 71 Newton meters. Is this going to focus? Oh, it does not want to focus. It's a bit annoying. And the main one here is between 98 and 118 Newton meters, and the little one here at the front is between, well, it says 88 Newton meters for torque, in case you were curious. Alright, let's keep tightening that nut. Now unfortunately, as you can see, because this nut is blocked access and you cannot get a socket onto it, you're going to have to guess the torque. And if you haven't done this a lot, if you have done it a lot, you can kind of do it by feel. If you haven't, tighten something you can tighten to, 59 to 71 Newton meters, and then put a spanner on it and see what it feels like. Right? And then try and remember the feeling of how tight it was, and then follow that on here. I have a pretty decent feel for tight or tight enough based on bolt sizes, etc. And that's really what it is. There's no magic to it. Based on the size of the nut and the size of the bolt and the material in use, and the forces involved, like on a suspension system, the torque's always going to be a certain way, and you just get used to feeling it. Once you've tightened something with a socket to 100 Newton meters 100 times, and you start getting used to the feel of it. Can't really explain it. It's just one of those things. Let's come back when I'm done. This could take forever. So in my case, it's actually not tightening. So quick tap seats it into the paper better. Oh yeah, and now I can see that the actual ball joint's no longer spinning, and it's just bottomed out. So now we're going to go for the 59 to 71 Newton meters of torque. And this does unfortunately spin the suspension arm as you go. I know I was in the way of the camera then, so oops. try and make sure you're on the nut before you tighten it. Yeah. Oops. Nice and gentle. Oh, see, that slipped off because it wasn't actually on the nut. Okay, I'm happy with that torque. So now I have to raise the wheel up, and I'll get out of your hair and show you how I do that with the jack. So we're going to get the jack right under where that first bolt is and jack the suspension up to where we feel the suspension height isn't. Now I'm doing what I can here to clear the nut as best as possible, because that will mean I can get to the nut. That may mean I can't get to the bolt on the other side. Okay, that's about right. Now, all we're going to do is hang our 17mm spanner off one end. Now, what I'm going to do is get this about right, about a little bit tight. And then I'm going to use my torque wrench. So this front one says 71 to 88, or thereabouts. No, this one was 88, sorry. Exactly. So I'm going to tune my torque wrench to 88. Get my 17mm socket. Okay, and then to get to the back side, if I can, I'll need to actually use a socket rather than a spanner. I can't get to it with the spanner. I can barely get to it with the socket as well, but let's see how we go. Right, well, first let's just see if I can tighten it. I'll see if it spins. No, the bolt's not turning, so I can keep going. There you go. Good enough. That's the front one. Now for the back one, but I don't think you'll see that, so just assume I tightened it to the requisite 98 to 118 Newton meters. Guidance. What can I give you guidance on? Does the torque wrench reach the front? No. Does the torque wrench reach the back? Yes. So you'll have to do the spanner on the front and the torque wrench on the back and tighten it using the bolt rather than the nut. There you go. Alright, so they're tight. Now I can lower the wheel, lower the hub I mean. We can put the wheel back on and we are done. That is essentially it. The entire job for replacing your lower control arms. Hope it helped.